All right, so let's look at some corrective exercises for rib flare. As always, check with your doctor, make sure you're cleared to exercise before beginning. In the last video, we addressed what rib flare was, how you could check it in your own body, and some of the implications and muscular imbalances you can get if you have a rib flare. So I do want to address how I would incorporate these few exercises into my program. I would recommend warming up first, doing some light walking, doing some light cardio, getting a little bit of a low intensity warm up before you begin, then foam rolling, some of the tight areas we talked about. If you know you have a rib flare, we're gonna look at pretty tight hip flexor area and tight back area. So you can start with a little bit of foam rolling, maybe some mobility work before you get into these exercises, which focus a little bit more on activation, stabilization, and like reconnecting the core. So I do think it's very important to get a warm up in before you start doing these things, especially for injury prevention. And like I mentioned, some of the people who are coming to this might be postpartum. If you've carried a baby, your ribs widen out and sometimes get forced a little up, and we get stuck in a little bit of a rib flare postpartum. And so reconnecting here in the core can help us heal an ab separation. It can help us with pressure management down on the pelvic floor. So this is a really good place to start, is to address this rib flare. And the opposite of the ribs flaring would be, and if the ribs are flared, we're kind of going to be stuck in like an inhalation pattern. So we'll often see a shallow breathing pattern. And the inability to really exhale, get a full exhale out, which requires, in order to exhale, you're going to need to have those ribs come down. So sometimes we have trouble with the exhale. If you have the opposite of what a rib flare would be, which would be kind of an upper ab gripping pattern where you're constantly gripping, you're going to have different muscular imbalances, but you'll have trouble with the inhale. You won't be able to inhale, expand the ribs out laterally, not up, not flared up, but out laterally. So I think a really good place, if you're brand new to some of this stuff, you just stumbled upon this video, you didn't watch the other video, a good place to start is with a strap that doesn't stretch, like a belt or something. This is a yoga stretching strap, but put it around your rib cage. And then I want you to have a little bit of tension on it and inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. So that's how we can start to get the ribs to expand out laterally. That's a good place to start if you haven't. I hear a lot about belly breathing, and it's good, but it can also, if you're only belly breathing or only neck and shoulder breathing, you're not breathing 360 degrees with lateral expansion in the ribs, a little bit of expansion in the belly, a little bit of expansion in the back, and a little bit of a stretch in the pelvic floor. That's the breathing pattern we're looking on inhale. And then that exhale, everything should draw in naturally. If you're just doing a passive exhale, it should naturally just come in, and even the pelvic floor would come up naturally. Now, what we're doing today is more of a forced exhale, because we're trying to get the rib cage down. We're trying to retrain that flared rib position. So there's a difference between day-to-day breathing and then what we're going to be doing here, which is going to be a little bit more of those corrective exercises. So I will use some props. We'll start with a small ball. You don't necessarily have to have this. I just do find it very helpful. This ball is a little squishy and it's a little smaller. So you'll want to lay down on your back. This is a good place to check your rib flare too, see how you're doing on it. And as you work on this, it'll slowly start to get better. You just have to be persistent with it, and work on it a few times a week can really help. So here, I'm going to have this ball on my knees, and in essence, I'm going to inhale, expand the ribs. This is our first exercise. And then when we exhale, work on pulling them down while I'm pulling my pelvic floor up. So there's a knitting in this midsection area. There's a knitting together. And when you exhale, when you're first starting, I want you to exhale out of the mouth, which can kind of facilitate more of an exhale. You're going to want to fully get that breath out too. So full exhale. this is what it would look like. My hands are going to be on the ball. I'm going to inhale, expand the ribs, expand the back, expand the belly, expand the pelvic floor, and then exhale. And back down. Now, if pulling the neck up creates any doming in your core, that's going to be too much pressure. So that tells us that we're not managing that pressure out very well. We're not getting those ribs to come down. We're not getting the TAs and the pelvic floor to engage. And so you don't want to lift your head. Then you would just practice on pressing down on your exhale. So inhale, expand. Exhale. Fully get all that breath out. This is the first one I want you to start with. So start here and work, a few repetitions into it. I'm going to give you 5 exercises to do. So you don't have to do too many repetitions, especially when you start. The next movement I want you to do is going to be an overhead reach. Now, I don't care how far you reach down. What I care about is that the ribs stay down. So we're going to inhale, expand, then exhale, reach. And I'm kind of tight. I just felt that. So what we don't want to happen is to reach and our ribs pop open here. And I know I'm over exaggerating it a lot, but we don't want to use our rib cage for an overhead reach. And so you can actually start to incorporate this, when you're reaching up for a dish in your kitchen, you can start to ribs down, then reach up. So this can be moved into a functional movement as well. So the next exercise is that overhead reach. And then we're going to move to our side body. And I will take this ball and I'm going to hold it right in front of my chest, okay? You'll be on the side, bring your knees together, keep your body from sinking down into the mat. You wanna have a little bit of tension here. And I'll just get my head comfortable. Find a comfortable place for your head. The movement's going to be inhale, feel that lateral expansion. And then exhale, press down, rib cage comes down. So this is going to be the movement we would want to do before doing like a side plank or something like this. This is going to be a modified version of a side plank, starting to get those same muscles to engage. So you'll inhale, expand in the side rib, and then exhale, press down. If you want to make this a little harder, let me make sure my hip bones are aligned here. I had to look at my knees, and you can have like a shifting. I just noticed that. So make sure you're aligned. You're going to inhale, lateral, and then exhale. So now we're starting to get an internal rotation in the hips. So this is going to be another progression of this exercise. So inhale, expansion in the ribs. Expansion in the back, expansion in the pelvic floor. Exhale, pull your pelvic floor in and up, pull your ribs cage down. Exhale with sound out of the mouth as you press into the ball, and then lift those legs up together in an internal rotation of the hips. So just kind of layering on there. So there's one more exercise I'm going to teach you. This one's a lot more advanced, especially if you haven't figured out how to bottom up brace like I teach in my courses. If you haven't really connected to that bracing ability yet, this one is a lot harder, but I still want to teach it for you. So I'm going to do a modified plank. And when I come up, I want to inhale first, then exhale, pelvic floor pulls up, and rib cage comes down. And then we can really work that here, where we're inhaling, and then exhaling, working on the rib cage coming down. Like I said, that's going to be a little bit more advanced because you're going to have to breathe underneath a brace. When we hold something like a plank, when we hold a position that we, or like marches is another example. If we're doing dead bugs, marches, those types of things, and we need to hold a brace in our belly, we still need to breathe underneath that brace. And so that's a little bit more of an advanced practice. And I have a video on pressure management that would be a really good one to look at if you're wondering how to breathe under a brace, how to bottom up brace, how to create intra-abdominal pressure. So all this stuff kind of, layers on and comes together in a way that you can use exercise to keep your body safe, to rehab from maybe pregnancies or injuries or those types of things. And the thing that is the most important, I believe, is the breathing pattern and the breath. And so that cornerstone of our health is really like the most important thing, in my opinion, to reestablish and to, if you're breathing 25,000 times a day, I really hope you're getting it right and you're not using all your neck and shoulders, and you're not breathing from this position, and you're not breathing from this position, and you're not breathing like this, sucking in on the inhale. So there's a lot to the breath, and I know so many people are like, of course I breathe correctly. But then I look around and half the people I see are breathing out of their mouth, labored breathing. And so no, a lot of people are not breathing correctly. So those few exercises, the 3 ones I just showed you, I'm going to show you 2 more that uses the wall that can help you retrain this rib flare. So I know I went off on a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's so important, the breath. Let's get into that next video.